Hello everybody, I'm Alterox, and this is my first video, and I will be doing an alternate history in which FDR was assassinated in 1933, where there was, in February, where there was an attempt in Miami, and I'm gonna say that he was killed, but instead of focusing necessarily on the scenario from that point on, I'm going to be focusing on the 1936 election in this universe, and reference what could have happened after. The candidates in this election would be John Nance Gardner, who was the vice president to FDR and would have taken over after he died. And then he would be representing the Democrats. Alf Landon, who ran in our timeline for the Republican ticket, and he would run again. He would run in this timeline, I believe, too, because he was a centrist, and the Democratic ticket this time would be more conservative, and it would benefit the Republican Party to be the centrist when compared to them and Harold Ick's party, the New Deal Party, which would be new and the platform's in the name. Harold Ick was I believe he was Secretary of the Interior for FDR, and he was a strong New Dealist. John Nance Gardner, he was known as Cactus Jack. He disliked unions and was a conservative from Texas. And this timeline also, Harold Ick would have been endorsed by the socialists. So let's get going. I'm going to do the state order in which, how in an actual election where smaller states would probably their results come in first over larger states, and with a preference to the Eastern Seaboard because time zones. So the first state, I believe, their results would come in would be Vermont, which would go handedly to Landon because he won that in real life, and I believe he would still win this with flying colors. And then we have Delaware, who would go also for Landon, although it would be closer with the NDP than in Vermont. Maine would also go for Landon, because that would be a landslide, because he won it in real life. And Rhode Island would go for Ick's, because the Northeast is very liberal, and that's why there wouldn't be a lot of Gardner support up here. But Rhode Island is a smaller state it's physically a smaller state. There's more cities, it's more urban, and they would have been hit by unemployment probably more than the more rural states of Vermont and Maine, and to an extent Delaware, although Delaware is also big manufacturing. And then I feel that West Virginia would go for the NDP and Ick's, because it is in Appalachia. There's a lot of coal mining, and it's a mining which would have been helped a lot by the New Deal, and people would view that those programs would help a lot to people, to unemployed coal miners and such. And also the socialists, I believe, would have a strong, a lot of people would be in unions because of coal mining, and would not be in favor for Gardner, so the socialist endorsement of Ick's would go a long way in West Virginia at this time. And then I'm going to say that New Hampshire would go to Alf Landon because he won Maine and Vermont, and I believe with the Democratic Party split, he would easily have, well, not easily, but he would have solidly taken New Hampshire. Next state, I think Florida and South Carolina would both pretty handedly go to Gardner because they were very conservative at this time, and I believe they would vote for most conservative candidate. Now I think Maryland would probably go for X because of like Baltimore and Annapolis, like bigger cities, and some more unemployment in that section, and also it has a good rural community, which, although I believe the rural community, depending on where they are, would work better with different candidates. But yeah, well, mostly the cities, Baltimore and Annapolis, would probably suffer from a lot of unemployment and go for X. And I feel Connecticut would go for X because it is similar to Rhode Island, very dense population, and it's near to New York, which I believe Mayor LaGuardia would have definitely endorsed X, and his say would have a lot of sway in New York and Connecticut and possibly New Jersey. Probably New Jersey too. So yeah. And I believe that Wyoming, I'm focusing now, I'm like shifting focus more towards the West because these are smaller states as well, and I believe that the bigger states would take longer. So Wyoming would go for, let me just find, I'm looking through minutes at the NDP because it is a western rural state, and those at this time they were more liberal because the New Deal would have helped them more. They would have thought, and in reality it did. It was good at around here, especially like I believe the Dust Bowl would go out handedly for X. Yeah, I think I'm going to change that in some of my notes because I completely forgot about that, and probably the damage caused by it, they would want more government spending. But yeah, New Mexico, where is it? I originally thought would go for I lost it on my map. I thought it would go for John Nance Gardner, but I'm going to say that it would probably go for X because I originally thought since it was at this time more conservative state, and they could be fearful of socialism due to just fear of like xenophobia because Mexico was also socialist, and they might be scared of that. I don't know. It was not the best logic for the time, but yeah, I believe it would go for X due to like the Dust Bowl people with their homes destroyed in the Northeast, and people who would have, well, not as bad as like here, but they would have still been affected, and they would have seen what this is done, and believe it would be close between Gardner and X, but X would pull through. Believe Arizona though would go for Gardner. Because it's more southern, and like at the time it was more conservative, and well, it is still conservative, but it was more conservative state and wouldn't be hit by the Dust Bowl as much. So yeah, Arizona. I think that Michigan, although it is a big state, it would have handedly gone to the NDP because of it was a huge manufacturing state, and those would have gone well with X. I think that Alabama would have gone for John Nance Gardner, and so would have Tennessee. The South would most likely go more for and Kentucky. I think Kentucky's up for grabs for anyone, really. But I'm just going to, I believe it would be split evenly because it's it has part of there's many coal miners who would have gone for Ix and this many city dwellers, but there's also a lot of just Southern conservatives who would have gone for Gardner, but and there would just be like the centrists there who just would have gone for Landon. So I'm actually going to give this to Landon. I'm going to give Kentucky to Landon, although it would be incredibly close and there would be controversy over it. I'm just doing this one now because I'm doing the rest of coal country. So even though this state, Kentucky, would probably come in later, like it would be, or like its results would come in later. The North Dakota, I believe, would have gone for the NDP. Because Lemke, their governor, I don't believe he would have ran in this timeline, but he would have put his full support behind Ix, and he had a great sway in North Dakota. He won like 30,000 votes there. It was crazy. I believe, I don't have the exact numbers on me right now, but I checked them yesterday, and I'm pretty sure it was like 30,000, and he's a third-party candidate, and back then, North Dakota only had like 150,000 votes. So I believe it would go on for the New Deal Party. Also, I wasn't planning necessarily to start off with this 270 to win. I only learned about it recently from the YouTuber Stellar Spark. I'm not trying to steal his ideas, but I thought it was really cool software and I wanted to test it out with a video, and I came up with this idea, so shout out to him. Yeah. So, I believe Montana would have gone for NDP because lots of mining, so similar reasons to West Virginia. And Colorado, I believe, since it was hit by the Dust Bowl as well as being like a lot of mining and such, that would go for North Dakota. This is a great little, not North Dakota, New Deal Party, sorry. There's a little belt here of New Deal states, the Plains Belt, I guess it would probably be called. I don't know. Utah, I believe it's conservative Mormon state, would have gone for Gardner. And I think Virginia would have gone actually for, I think Virginia would have gone for ALF because I feel they were very conservative at this time, but also the Depression would have, and Gardner's presidency wouldn't have done the best to combat the Depression. Like, it would combat it a little, but not enough, and they would probably feel that a centrist could have done things better because they wouldn't want Ix, like a lot of people, but they weren't so hyped up on Gardner as most of the other southern states were, so they'd probably go for Landon. I don't know. And New Jersey, I feel, would have gone for the NDP because LaGuardia, and also because it is very, like, many cities there. 266 electoral votes to win. Nevada would have gone. This one's harder, but I'm actually going to change it. I'm going to say that Ix would have won. I originally said ALF would have, but I feel now that Ix probably could have swept the West, like a lot of the West. And Oregon, though, I originally said the NDP, but now that I think about it, I think Alf Landon would have actually done better there because, like, they're similar to Virginia, but sort of in the opposite. Like, they were more moderate because there was many conservatives and many liberals, so I believe they would have just chosen many people would have just chosen Landon, and like some from both sides would just choose Landon as the safe candidate. So Oregon would go for Alf Landon. And Georgia, he would definitely go for Ix. Yeah, no, he goes for Gardner, and so would North Carolina. But I think Mississippi. Where did I write it? Yeah, I think Mississippi would have gone for Gardner too, but Arkansas and Louisiana, that's a bit more. I think Louisiana would have gone for Ix, and you know why? Because Huey Long would survive due to the butterfly effect. I think that he would survive. There would probably be an attempt on his life due to just the political climate, but I feel he could have, and he would have endorsed Ix because his every man a king, share the wealth stuff would have gone better with Ix, and socialists endorsed Ix. But so I think his sway would have taken Louisiana, and he could have contested Arkansas just himself, because we're talking about the kingfish here. So Louisiana, but yeah, never mind. But South Dakota, I feel would be closer than North Dakota, but I originally said Alf, but I think NDP because of it's the Plains Belt, he would have done good in rural areas. I forgot to check that. Indiana, I think would have gone Alf because it wasn't a particularly liberal or conservative state. And Nebraska, I think Nebraska would have been closer, but I think Nebraska is sort of like it has cities and it has what is it? Farms, rural. Sorry, my mind's dying. So I think it could have gone for Landon, but it would be a toss-up between Ix and Landon. I'm gonna say, and also Gardner would have a strong presence as well. But I'm going to say that probably due to some propaganda campaign or something, because it would probably be on the wire, Nebraska. Though, realistically, you could put up a good argument, it would go for Ix. I'm just going to put it for Landon. No, it's not the most realistic thing in the world, but I sort of feel like it. And it could happen. He could have just taken it. Where did I write Nebraska? There. And Kansas, Dust Bowl, and Oklahoma. Also because of the Dust Bowl, though the Oklahoma would be more contested with Texas, but and a lot of the Okies would influence the California vote, but I believe, yeah. So right now, Harold Ix looks to be coming up to the winner. I think Ohio would have gone Landon. I know it sounds like in most elections. I don't know if this was true at the time, but I know definitely now. Ohio usually decides who wins. Like whoever wins the election will win Ohio. This case might not be so sure. I actually haven't calculated the victory yet. Because I was taking this on a state-by-state basis, so I'd also be surprised who would win, but I'm pretty sure it's Ix. And Wisconsin, I feel that one would also be close, but I think it's not. I think it would actually go for Alf. Be honest, I originally thought it would be closest between the NDP and Alf, but it was it was like not as heavily manufacturing as Michigan, and it's a similar deal to Oregon. I think like more people from all walks of life, just political walks of life, just deciding, okay, we'll just go Landon. Because in this timeline, Landon was further to the left than he was in our timeline. Like, not much, but a bit, because he would have found it would be better for his career to be like that, because there's an actual conservative candidate in this election. Idaho would go for the NDP, and New York, Idaho for similar reasons, it's a mountainous state of mining. New York would go for X because of LaGuardia. So Idaho and New York here. Massachusetts would have been... Well, I'm going to leave Massachusetts because it's really close between, in my mind, like, Ix and Landon. Now that I'm thinking, I originally said NDP would win Ix, but I don't know. Texas would handedly go to Gardner because it's his home state. As you can see, well, everybody still has a chance, but California would go... I originally said the NDP. Now that I think about it, because I originally thought of Landon as more conservative, then now I'm rethinking about it. I'm like, yeah, he'd probably be more left-leaning than he was in our timeline, just due to political circumstance and advantage. I think he would have taken California. Yeah. Washington, I think, I originally said NDP, but I feel like it's sort of like Oregon is, I feel it could have gone for ELF, because it would be close, but it's more, like, not necessarily, like, rural's not necessarily the right word, but, yeah, rural, but not like plains, farms, giant acreage, although there is farming in eastern Washington, but I feel it would have done the same thing as Oregon and just compromised. There's the word. Minnesota would have, I don't know why I did that, but would have gone for X. I'm thinking it's either X or Landon. Dang. I feel like I'm rethinking this, but I feel if he won Wisconsin, I feel I'm going to give it to Landon. I know it sounds like I'm just like, oh, I'll just give this to Landon, but it's actually, some of my choices I sort of rushed through, so I feel I'm just going back on him. Iowa, like I originally said Landon, but it's a very big rural state, so I'm just going to give it to Ix. So see, it works out in the end. Missouri would have been three-way, but I feel they would have a lot of Southern conservatives and like more just people desiring new jobs and like rural, like in the farms and in the cities, but I believe that a coalition similar to in Virginia, not a coalition, but like just a compromise candidate of Landon would win Missouri. Yeah, I even said that. Arkansas, I feel, wow, this is actually close. Closer than I thought. Arkansas would have gone to John Nance Gardner, even though, and Illinois would have gone for the NDP because of Chicago being a large part of Illinois' population and would have been hit hard by the Depression. Massachusetts, would have... It would have been close, as I said prior, that it would be close between the NDP and Landon, but I think I'm going to give it to the NDP. And Pennsylvania, yeah, it's going to the NDP, even though it was Alf's home state as well. So it actually, the victory is decided in the Electoral College, and I am pretty sure that Gardner would not step down to just, try to give his votes to Landon or pull off something like that. There wouldn't be some dirty moves. And I think Ix would have won the 1936 election if FDR had been assassinated. Thank you for watching, and if you want a part 2 to this, I'll gladly make it for 1940, and I might make a sequel to that. I'll turn this into a scenario if you want me to. Heck, even if you don't want me to. I kid. But I bet there's going to be at least somebody who wants to say part 2 of this. Okay. Bye.